Am I the asshole for not allowing my Mill to sign my daughter up for a purity ball at her church? I've posted here before about my Mill, and now I'm back with another issue. My daughter Tess, 9F, has gone to church with Mill periodically since she was little. I don't love that, as I'm not a religious person and my Mill is an aggressive Baptist, but my husband thinks it's a good bonding activity and so I don't complain. Plus, it gives us adult time on Sundays. Well, because of the virus, services have gone online. Tess still goes over to Mil's place and helps her set up the laptop for them to watch together. She also zooms into a girls' Sunday school group after the service. Last week, Tess came home chattering about the ball, and how Mill is going to take her shopping at a fancy shopping center in our town. I thought she was playing an imagination game, so I just nodded along. Then, my husband chimed in to remind Tess that the budget is $50. I was super confused and asked him what was up. He gave me kind of a shady look and said that the girls' Sunday school class was having a dance this June. I asked him how COVID would affect that, and he didn't know. My spider senses were tingling, so I pulled him aside to the back porch. Eventually I gathered that he was talking about an annual purity ball for the 10 to 14-year-old girls. He said my Sil had done it in middle school and it was just a fun thing and not a big deal. I started blowing my top, to be honest, and I informed him that purity ideals are bad for girls. I thought we were on the same page about those topics, but he thinks it's just a fun thing for girls to do and get dressed up. My husband claims that he wasn't trying to hide it from me and that he thought I knew, given how popular the purity ball is at their church. I put my foot down and texted Mill to ask if she'd signed Tess up. She said not yet, and I made clear I wouldn't allow it. Period. Ever. Mill sent back her usual stuff implying that I'm a hoe who led her son down a bad road and I'm an unfit mother. Am I the asshole for forbidding the purity ball? The only reason I could be the asshole is I unilaterally decided against my husband's input, and I think Tess will be disappointed.
Not the asshole. Purity balls are creepy and weird. They also give people long-lasting issues around sex and intimacy and in general sexualize young girls for no reason. Mill and husband had no right to promise her this without talking to you about it first. Unfortunately she's already excited about the shopping and dressing up, so that's a whole other subject to broach.
Not the asshole. Those things can get very creepy, very quickly. It's all dressed up to look harmless, but there's something about dressing little girls up in nice dresses that are frequently awfully reminiscent of wedding dresses, telling them that their virginity is the most valuable and important thing about them, and frequently promising their virginity to their fathers until their wedding day that gets very squicky, very quickly. This kind of shit needs to stop. It's not harmless dress up for fun. It's a mind game and abusive misogyny hidden behind harmless-looking sparkles.
Not the asshole. Your husband is the asshole here. He knowingly hid this from you, went behind your back and made these plans that he knew you did not agree with. Everyone sucks here. Letting your daughter get indoctrinated into a religion you don't share for some adult time is going to cause issues down the road. It is already starting to, as you can see from these ideas of purity.
Not the asshole. Your husband knew what you would feel about it and so he hid it deliberately from you. That's why he got cagey when you asked. You're right about the whole purity thing as well.
NTA for saying no, but you are the asshole for letting her go on Sundays. I'm saying this as a Christian. Your Mill is most likely alienating your daughter from you when she spends unsupervised time with her. I wouldn't allow anyone who said bad things about me unfettered access to my kid. For someone that was raised to be in events like this is not innocent. It's not obvious, but they start early to start conditioning. They call it a purity ball for a reason. Your husband and Mill hid this from you because they know you would disapprove for good reason. Your Mill is testing the waters, what influence she has as a parent. Yes, a parent, not a grandparent. Ask your daughter if the church has tried to pressure her into anything else. I would honestly start debating if you are okay with this behavior for the rest of your life. Not the asshole.
So the Mill who wants to take your kid to a purity ball calls you a hoe and a bad mother. Does anyone else see any hypocrisy in this? Purity balls are creepy and weird. 4 of my friends who all went to churches similar to this all ended up pregnant in high school, not an exaggeration. Not the asshole, but you shouldn't have gotten your daughter started on a bad path to begin with just so you could have alone time. There's no way I'd let my kid participate in such a hateful and damaging religion.
You are the asshole for letting your daughter go to a church when you clearly strongly disagree with the values of that religion. The purity ball is an issue, but weekly exposure to the religion that encourages and hosts the damn thing are fine. Start paying attention to why you're actually exposing your daughter to. Not the asshole. Those purity balls are toxic and everything you shouldn't involve your daughter in. Even worse, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. Keep her home and watch a movie together.
You are the asshole. What did you expect? Sending her to church every week for 9 years and then being shocked she's doing an activity the creepy church traditionally does?
NTA. She's 9. That seems a little young, and it's just a road of guilt for her future. You should sit in on mass sometime and see what they're teaching.
Not the asshole. You are protecting your daughter from the mental abuse and programming to feel shame about her body and desires. You have to get her out of that church. All these youth activities do is indoctrinate the kids before they reach the age of reason. Not the asshole. Your husband and Mill knew exactly what they were doing by hiding this from you. You should also check and see what else is being done without your knowledge to your daughter. Perhaps it's time to reevaluate letting her go see your Mill on Sundays if she will not respect your rules about your daughter.
Not the asshole. Fuck purity balls and fuck fanatical Baptists. Source, was raised in fanatical Baptist home.
Not the asshole. Purity balls sound creepy period, but for a 9-year-old. Super creepy.
I can't really judge this one. Not the asshole. I didn't know there was such a thing, purity ball, until a few minutes ago. So I don't really know the intricacies, implications. But isn't there a chance it's just a bit of fun? Or at least, that's how your daughter might see it, given that she is only 9? Anyway, I shall read the other comments with interest. Am curious what the fuck this purity ball thing is all about. Edit. Now that people have explained a bit more, I'm going with not the asshole. That sounds super creepy. Regardless, I wouldn't want my daughter near any of that.
Not the asshole. Your husband tried to hide it from you initially and then tried to gaslight you. That of course you had to know about it.
Not the asshole. Your mother-in-law and husband are being shady as hell. I'd end the church visits and Sunday school immediately, and obviously no purity balls. There are numerous ways to bond with a child beyond lugging them to church.
Not the asshole. It's your daughter, not your Mill's daughter. Why is she signing your kid up for stuff without your input? Why is your husband hiding things like this? This all seems very sketchy.
Not the asshole. I'm all for respecting religions or whatever, but I agree a purity ball does send a bad, misogynistic message to young girls, so you're definitely not an asshole for not wanting your daughter to be part of that. Everything aside, she's your child, and you have the right to veto these things. Mill is obviously the asshole for calling you out of your name. Husband is also likely an asshole for being shady about the whole thing. I'd talk to him about that.
Not the asshole. But you do know that the church is no longer just a fun bonding time, if it ever was. And they are now actively indoctrinating your daughter in all the ideals that go with thinking purity balls are okay, right? And that you have a problem because your husband sees nothing wrong with this.
Not the asshole for denying your daughter the purity ball, but you are the asshole for not preventing your Mill from indoctrinating your daughter with harmful ideas in general, just so you can have some adult time on Sundays. Do you seriously think the purity ball is separate from all the other ideology she's being exposed to once a week?
Not the asshole. Please don't back down on this. Mill is straight up crazy and trying to control your daughter before she even discovers her sexuality, which could set her up for a lifetime of confusion and shame, or worse, spreading that bullshit to other kids. Not the asshole. Find another way to get adult time because your daughter's already been indoctrinated for 9 years and your husband is going along with this behind your back.
Not the asshole. You are protecting your girl. Thesis te beginning of teaching girls how pure they have to stay until they get married, otherwise they lose all value. Nope. Your kid WLL, thank you later. And if Mill doesn't understand, I'd cut the whole church thing altogether. Not the asshole. I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible because I wholeheartedly agree with you. Now the party itself can be a perfectly innocent thing and it's a chance for your daughter to make new friends, but at the end of the day those purity dances aren't healthy and to me come off very pervy on children. She's your daughter and you have every right to raise her how you see fit. I would also ask your daughter her wants too. If she wants to go, take it into consideration.
Not the asshole. Also, if grandma can't show you respect and doesn't respect your boundaries about your daughter, maybe church activities need to end. At a minimum, I think you should start having conversations with your daughter after every church service to make sure she isn't learning anything objectionable. Not the asshole. There's various documentaries on them and the whole thing is really weird and creepy.
Not the asshole, not the asshole, not the asshole. Grr. Sick. Well done for protecting her from this creepy, wildly inappropriate and damaging debacle. Besides the ultra-creepy purity thing, hello. COVID. Why is there a ball happening during COVID? Not the asshole. This sounds similar to what my mill would try to pull on my stepdaughter, through her evangelical ways. Also, why didn't your husband have to go to a purity ball? It's only for girls, huh? Suspicious, much? So much not the asshole.
Not the asshole. I hate how most Jesus people are so obsessed with purity, and half the time weren't even pure themselves in the teen years. My dad had to do this same kinda stuff when my grandma shoved Catholicism down my throat, and I'm so thankful he did. Again, not the asshole.
NTA. Your kid, your rules.
Not the asshole. Have your husband read this article about Elizabeth Smart. She was kidnapped and raped, and had an opportunity to escape, but didn't. Why? Because everyone had taught her she was dirty and worthless because she'd been penetrated by a penis. Is that what your husband wants for your little girl? What if she wants to escape an abusive relationship but she won't come home because she learned she's trash because she had sex? Purity culture is also tied to vaginismus, which could make sex either painful or impossible for the rest of her life. There are almost no upsides to this, and several horrific downsides.
I've thankfully never been to one of these balls, but don't they often involve pledges of chastity? Do you think your daughter is mature enough to talk about sex, abstinence, etc.? I mean, I am in favor of being honest with kids about that kinda stuff, but I'm not sure this is the way to do it. Not the asshole.
Your husband was absolutely trying to be vague about the ball, so don't feel like the ah. You should also seriously rethink these church visits as your daughter gets older. She is approaching puberty and you can now be fairly certain that the messages she is receiving from your mill and the church conflict with the messages you are trying to instill.
Not the asshole. I'd be livid, and not just because the whole purity thing is vile, but also because it's incredibly manipulative to get your daughter excited about a dance and a new dress when they haven't even discussed this with you yet. That was a deliberate tactic to pressure you to go along with this. Give in or disappoint your daughter, which makes it particularly crappy. They manipulated your kid. Think about that when you question who's the asshole here.
Not the asshole. Purity balls are gross and sexualizes children.
You're having a meltdown about the sprinkles, but ignoring the entire cupcake. The damage is being done in Sunday school. That's where the purity indoctrination is happening. The ball is simply a party celebrating the concept. You are the asshole for your gross misunderstanding of the situation. You need to be observing what goes on in Sunday school, and deciding if that content is harmful. Honestly, you should probably be zooming the church service, too. Some of that white evangelical folk religion is really hateful.
Sorry, I have to go with you or the asshole. You knew you Mill's beliefs, you knew the beliefs of the church she attends, and you still let your kid be heavily involved with said church. You really think this is the only negative thing she has learned from that church? You sound like a pretty hands-off parent.
Not the asshole. What in ever-loving F is a purity ball? We live in the 21st century and not the 20th or 19th for that matter. Purity should be a no-go, and I would seriously be reconsidering the alone time with grandma. God no. Ha. What crap she's filling her head with when she's with her unsupervised. Maybe grandma time now needs to be supervised. I get you like your alone time, but your daughter's right to not be indoctrinated into religion and misogynistic thinking is probably more important at this point. NTA. Purity anything is creepy. The fact that your husband seemed to know this and not tell you is troubling. You should not allow your mill to speak to you that way. Your husband needs to stand up for you. If say no daughter grandma time for a couple weeks.
I'm sympathetic to you, but this is what happens when you send the kid to church with your hyper-religious mill. Purity ball aside, if you don't like this message, you should realize that they're saying this stuff and other stuff like this to your kid every Sunday that she goes. At least this has woken you up. If your values clash with your MILs, then don't do this any Sunday. The purity ball is just the most visible sign. Your husband sucks for lying and hiding this to you and failing to tell his mother to chill. This is your biggest problem, by the way. Your MIL sucks because she is calling you a whore and God knows what else.
Not the asshole but the ideals you're rightfully worried about being instilled in her with this purity ball business won't disappear if she doesn't attend. These types of ideals are surely being pressed on her every week at church and the girls' church group. Have you watched any of these to know what she is being taught so you can counter it with more secular information? I just think you may see the purity ball as a singular issue, but it's deeply connected with the teachings week to week that she's being indoctrinated with. Everyone sucks here, you knew who your MIL was, and you let this go on for years. You abdicated your responsibility for your daughter's morality to a woman whose morals you vehemently disagreed with. The only way I see out of this is to find a church you can live with and start going with your daughter. Making your daughter go cold turkey from her grandma and belief system will only cause her to resent you and cling tighter to the church. Yes, this means giving up your adult time. Deal with it.
Your MIL and husband suck more. I don't blame you for taking the stance you have. I just think it's an asshole move to unilaterally decide that she can't go, even though she seems like she wanted to, and haven't, at least based on this post, sat down with her, asked her what she understands about this ball, and explained to her your position on purity. I realize 9 is young, but obviously not young enough to stop a predatory religion from telling her to keep her legs shut. Have that conversation with her. Find out what she thinks purity means and tell her what standards you will hold her to as a teenager. AKA, you don't have to stay celibate till marriage. Then ask her about going to the ball.
Is there a purity ball equivalent for 10 to 14 boys? If they don't have an equivalent for boys where they dress up in a tuxedo and their mother puts a ring on their finger and they pledge to mom that they will save their virginity for marriage, they are nothing but hypocrites, not even bothering to hide their misogyny. It is just indoctrination intended to plant and grow the idea that girls are solely responsible for avoiding premarital sex. Good for you, opt for wanting to protect your daughter from this crap. Not the asshole.
Not the asshole. Purity culture is gross and misogynistic.
You are the asshole for drawing the line at a purity ball. That ball just focuses on one aspect of a religion you're permitted your daughter to be exposed to. How will you explain it to your daughter? Everything else you hear at church is fine but this ball. Weird place to draw a line for a 9-yo.